Now, before I start this video on this, the Panasonic Lumix S1H, check out my other videos. I've done an unboxing video. There will be must-have accessories for the S1H. There will also be an autofocus test, and there will also be later on a vlogging test. I'm going to take this out and do a vlog with it and see if the camera is capable of doing a vlog. It's a bit heavy, I must admit, compared to my GH5 and GH5S, but who knows, it could do a really good job. So remember to check out those videos, and the vlogging video will be coming in a few days. Yes, in a few days. I have a really busy schedule at the moment. I'm trying to get as many videos out as I can. So go over to my channel and check out the other videos, and remember to subscribe and hit that little bell icon, and then you'll get a notification when the new videos come out. So let's get on with the review. As you all know, this has now been launched. This is the Panasonic Lumix S1H. This is basically a GH5 and a GH5S on steroids. It's a really big camera. Let me compare it to, this is my S1, and that is the S1H. It is a lot bigger. Not massively bigger, but it is noticeably bigger, especially when you pick it up. I can't compare it to my GH5 and GH5S because those two cameras are there recording at the moment. So my main video cameras are my GH5 and GH5S. I never really got on with the S1 as a video camera. It's more of a stills camera that can do good video. It does have some limitations, and Panasonic basically have fixed all those and added more that you didn't even think you needed into this, the S1H, which is what we're going to talk about now. And I'm going to give you my first impressions of this camera. Now, I swapped over from Nikon to the full Panasonic system. I started that process about 18 months ago when I got the GH5 and GH5S, and I kind of really enjoyed using those cameras. They're very easy to use, they're very reliable, they're built like tanks. They're not overpriced, but they are a micro four thirds sensor. So when they brought out the S series, I was quite excited. I got to use the Panasonic S1R before it was actually launched on a photo project in Taiwan for Taiwan Trade Commission. We were doing an exhibition at Taipei Cycle Show, which is past, it was this last March. And I kind of fell in love with the camera system. It's a really nice system to use. I don't really get on with very small mirrorless cameras. It's a nice chunky camera system. The S1 and S1R are identical bodies, but the S1 is 24 megapixels and the S1R is 47 megapixels. Up until a couple of weeks ago, the S1R was the highest resolution mirrorless camera on the market until the Sony A7R Mark IV, I think it's called. I get confused with those cameras. That's now the king. That's 61 megapixels, which is a lot of megapixels. But let's talk about the S1H, because that's what this review is about. Now, the S1H has a 24.2 megapixel sensor. Now, this is a brand new design sensor. This is not the same sensor that's in the S1. Do not confuse it with that. This is a completely different sensor in here. Now, this actually has an anti-aliasing filter attached to it. Most cameras these days have them removed, but the S1H has it there because obviously this camera is designed for video more than photography, and to get rid of moire in video is quite hard. In photos it's quite easy actually. There's a setting in Lightroom that does it straight away, but in video it's actually really hard. So they've actually added the filter to this. So the S1 will be slightly sharper for photos and video, I guess, than the S1H. But to be truthful, the tests I've done in photos and video, I couldn't see any difference. If there is, it's very slight, and I would rather have that filter on there and stop moire appearing in my videos than have the moire there, because it can completely ruin a shot really. Now, another nice feature of this new sensor is that it has dual ISO, so you're actually going to get a lot better performance in low light. And in the stills photos that I've taken and tested, it's actually better than the S1, which I thought was really good actually. This is actually better, and for video, it's incredible. It makes a real big difference. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, the S1H is a slightly bigger body than the S1 and S1R. It does feel chunkier, I have to say, but it does have some great features, and some of them are world's first in a mirrorless camera. Now, on the top, you have this new screen, which is much bigger, obviously, than the old screen, and when you change from photo to video, the screen changes as well. So it adapts itself for the mode you're in, which is really nice. Now, on the back, you've got a new mode in the screen, which is this full color screen for video work, which gives you all the information you need, as you can see on the camera. Just these two features is absolutely amazing as camera. But what they've also done, they've added the switch from the G9 on the front. Now, on the top, you have a big record button. You can't really miss that record button. It's kind of like the GH5S, but bigger. And there's also a record button at the front down here as well. You'll actually notice that the screen now is in line with the EVF. Unlike the GH5 and GH5S, it sits off to one side because it's an articulating screen. But because this is a tilt screen as well, they've actually centered it, which is a really nice feature actually, especially for me being a photographer most of the time, or even shooting video actually, to have the screen like that and able to keep the screen dead center of where I'm shooting is a real nice feature. Something I've been discussing with Panasonic for the last 18 months is to add this, which is a front recording light, but they've actually added the rear one now as well. You've actually got a recording light on the camera so you know when it's recording. You can actually turn it off if you want in the menu, or you can have it set to the rear only or to the front only. It's up to you. Now, that was something I discussed with them about 18 months ago because it's really handy for me because sometimes I can't check around the back of my camera. One thing I would like you to add, Panasonic, if you're watching this video, is Bluetooth audio. You've got Bluetooth in these cameras. I just want to be able to connect a Bluetooth headset, check my audio, and then put the headset away, basically. I know you're going to get a slight lag, but I'm not worried about that. I just want to check that my audio sounds really good, because at the moment I'm just relying on what the camera tells me and also what I'm seeing on my iPad. Now you'll notice on the side there is something that looks like air vents. They are actually air vents. Now, did a video about 3 months ago and I kind of guessed that's what they were when I saw the photos of the camera, that it's an air vent system. Obviously, this camera needs to be cooled down because this actually shoots 6K video, or 5.9K in 16:9 ratio, but we'll just call it 6K because 5.9 is very, very close to 6K. And this camera actually has an unlimited recording time. Unlike the S1, most people think that's unlimited. It's not. It will cut off and it will overheat. This camera will not overheat. The fan will kick in automatically at a certain temperature, or you can actually set it to come on automatically, or you can keep it turned off. It's entirely up to you, but just keep it on auto really. So once it reaches that temperature, the fan kicks in and away you go. Now, I did a test the other day. I had one of my hot air heaters on the camera to try and get the fan to come on, and it wouldn't. I gave up basically, or if it did come on, I didn't hear it. But what you don't need to be worried about is this doesn't affect the weather sealing of the camera. Okay, I've had a chat with Panasonic and it's still got the same good weather sealing as the S1 and the S1R. So you don't need to worry about that. It has really good weather sealing. So these air vents here are not going to affect the weather sealing in any way, but it will mean that you can use this camera in real extreme conditions, in the cold. Obviously it's not going to affect the heat problem, but if you're working in real hot conditions, this camera will not overheat. And that's the great feature about this. Now, this is a world's first as well from Panasonic to build a fan into a camera. The only cameras I know that have fans in are the big cameras like the Reds and that lot. None of the smaller cameras, especially mirrorless cameras, do not have a fan built in. So that's a really nice feature. Like I said, I haven't heard it come on. I've tried to make it come on. If it did come on, I didn't hear it. So it's either very quiet or it needs to get really, really hot for it to come on. Now, one thing that has changed from the S1 and S1R is the memory card slots. Now, on the S1 and S1R, you had a UHS-2 and an XQD card. On this one, you have UHS-2 and UHS-2. They're identical memory card slots, but what that's for is so you can actually simultaneously record your video footage. You can have a backup of your video footage. You can't do that if the memory cards are not at the same speed. If one card is slightly slower or slightly faster, it's not going to happen. So that's a nice feature they've added in there, so you get the backup that you need built into the camera. Now, some of the photography features of this camera, this has an 8,000 second mechanical shutter. It has a 400,000 shutter life, which is actually right up there with the pro Nikon cameras, to be truthful. That's amazing. It will focus in -6 EV, and it has better ISO performance than the S1, and this has incredibly good ISO performance. So they put some really nice photo features into a camera that's mostly designed for video. So you got to look at this camera. This is a video camera that can shoot stills. The S1 is a stills camera that can shoot video. The best way to look at this camera, like I said, this is a video camera that shoots stills. This is a GH5 and a GH5S combined together with extra features in a full frame mirrorless body, basically. It has all the best features of both the cameras. It has the really good low light capabilities of the GH5S. This has 6 stops of stabilization. It has Vlog built in. You don't have to purchase it or get it as an extra for the S1. It's actually built into this, and you get 14 stops in that Vlog. The GH5 and the GH5S, you only get 12 stops, and the Vlog is really, really good on this. I'm not very good at color correcting my video footage, and I'm trying to learn that as I go along. But the little bit of test that I've done with this, it's absolutely amazing. The 14 plus stops that you get in that Vlog is just incredible. Now, there will be a link to a Dropbox folder down below with a sample footage in there shot at 5.9K Vlog for you guys to download and play around with. Now, I will try and do that in 10-bit 422 if my Atmos Ninja works. I haven't tested it with this camera yet, which I will be doing later on. If it does work, I will do it in 10-bit 422 Vlog so you guys can play around with it and see what you think of the footage. But it is 5.9K. The reason I'm not going to upload it to this video is you won't see any difference because YouTube only has 4K. and they compress it so much, you're not going to see anything. And I can tell you now, I've got a 5K iMac upstairs, and this has completely blown me away. There is no camera on the market that can touch this camera at the moment. For the price and what this camera has built into it, there's nothing that can touch this. There is the new Blackmagic Cinema 6K, but that has some issues, to be honest. That is a great camera, but it has an EF mount. It's not a mirrorless mount. I don't know why Blackmagic did that. Even the new rumored red Komodo has the EOS R mount, which is a mirrorless mount, and you can add adapters to that. I don't know why Blackmagic did that. The Blackmagic has no in-body stabilizer. The Blackmagic is slightly smaller than a Super 35 sensor. This has in-body stabilization, which the Blackmagic doesn't. This takes incredible photos. This has a great autofocusing system. The Blackmagic doesn't. So I was almost tempted to buy the Blackmagic 6K when it came out, but then I got this camera and I read the specs. There's no point. This will do just as good a job. And to be truthful, the Vlog, 14 stops you get in the Vlog is really good. It's very, very close to RAW. And if you know what you're doing when you're shooting, you shouldn't have any problems anyway. Now in video, this will shoot up to 6K at 3:2 ratio, 5.9K, which basically is 6K, at 16:9. Now the 16:9 will do 24, 25, and 30p. If you drop it down to Cinema 4K, you can actually shoot right up to 50 and 60p. This will actually record audio at 60p Cinema 4K or 4K. When you're shooting 50, 60p with the S1, you don't get audio, so you've got that feature in there. And as you drop down in resolution down to 1080, you get up to 180 frames a second with this camera. Now remember also, you'll get less artifacts because this actually has the anti-aliasing filter attached to it. The S1, S1R have that removed, so they are slightly sharper, but I haven't seen any difference, to be truthful, when little tests I've done. Now, a phrase that's used a lot these days is game changer. There are so many amazing products coming out at the moment, and yes, a lot of them are game changers. Some are not. People still call them game changers, but this is the real game changer. What Panasonic have done here with this camera to produce a camera at this level and at this price, I think this is $4,000 US, which is absolutely insane when you think what you're getting. All of the features they put into this camera are just mind-blowing, really, to be truthful. And this is the best mirrorless camera on the market to shoot video with. There is nothing on the market that can compete with this. Remember, it also has the legendary Panasonic in-body stabilization on this. So any other lens you attach with an adapter on this will work with the in-body stabilizer. You can't say that about the Blackmagic Cinema 6K, whatever it's called, or the other cameras out there. None of the mirrorless cameras on the market shoot 5.9 or 6K like this can, with this amazing Vlog built into this camera as well. Now in a few days, there will be a few more videos coming. There will actually be a test with this camera and the 24-105 lens on my Freefly Movi 5. Now I wanted to use that gimbal because it's a much better gimbal than any of the other single-handed gimbals out there, and it can handle the weight of this camera and the lens really well. So there will be a cinematic test on that, and to see what I think of it as a video camera for that type of work. Plus, I will also be doing a couple of videos this week on my film photography, and I'm going to use this as my main camera. So it's basically going to be a vlogging camera, and I'm going to see how it performs and what I think of it and how easy it is to edit the footage that comes out of this. So far, it's been incredibly easy to use. It doesn't look any bigger actually than what comes out on my GH5 and GH5S, even in 5.9K. I think it's using a new codecs. So if you want to see those videos, remember to subscribe and also hit that little bell icon next to it, and that will give you a notification when those videos come up. They should be in a few days after this is actually launched. Like I said, I have a really busy schedule at the moment, so I'm trying to do as many videos as I can. As always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.